I think the administration has made a mistake that could bring their administration down. Of all the decisions Obama has made and this administration's made, spending has gotten them in trouble. This massive health care bill was rejected by the American people, but this is one issue where most people don't see the other side. And I'm trying to get my colleagues to act responsibly by saying to the administration, we will not fund that effort. That is your decision to make, but there will be no money to implement that decision.
Republican Senator Lindsey Graham insists he has a lot of Democrats who are very concerned about the administration's plans to try detainees in civilian courts in New York. So much so, the Attorney General received a letter from 6 senators, 3 of them Republicans, 2 Democrats, and 1 independent, saying they should call this whole thing off. And now there's an effort in Congress to pull the funding for the trials in New York. What about all of this as a development? Let's bring in our panel. Juan Williams, news analyst for National Public Radio. Nina Easton, columnist for Time and Fortune magazines, and syndicated columnist Charles Krauthammer. Charles, this seems like a big deal, and Graham insists he's got a lot of Democrats on his side.
This is an issue with legs, and the race is on. Look, the issue was discovered, the salience was discovered in Massachusetts, where the Republican understood after the administration decision on the Christmas attacker to give him a civilian trial and to read him his Miranda rights. He shut up and he denied us a lot of intelligence on active terrorism in Yemen against us. That was scandalous, and I think it would resonated with the voters in Massachusetts. Now, you can't roll that one back. The guy has his rights and you can't undo them. However, the surrogate issue is the Khalid Sheikh Mohammed, which is an equivalent issue of having the guy who was behind 9/11 have a trial in New York City. There is tremendous sentiment against that. The arguments against that are unassailable. We learned from the first trial of the World Trade Center attackers of the early 1990s that inevitably will compromise the methods and sources. It's going to cost $200 billion a year in order to give this terrorist the biggest platform for his propaganda in the world. It makes no sense at all. And I think what Wolf Graham have done in introducing the bill is to force Democrats in the House to declare themselves on what's otherwise an abstract issue. This is going to be up or down. Do you want to appropriate the money to allow the trial or not? I think it's brilliant politically because it will make clear who's on which side of this issue.
Nina, Lindsey Graham, if you remember, at the beginning of this decision was told by the White House not to come out and speak out against it until he met with the president. He told Fox that he met with the president, and the president told him it was a, quote, close call. He felt that this was the way to go. And Senator Graham said he didn't think it was a close call at all.
Well, it's a close call that could provide a forum for an al-Qaeda terrorist to speak to the world, right, coming on the heels of the Christmas Day potential bombing, where this guy was interrogated for 15 minutes before he got lawyered up and has gone silent. I agree with Senator Graham on the political. I mean, there's the reality of it, the dangerous realities, in that we have a report out today saying that al-Qaeda is actually going after weapons of mass destruction, is serious about it, is happy to wait a long time, happy to be patient to go after us. Then there's the political side, which will play out this year, which I agree with Senator Graham is extremely dangerous for Democrats, because if you just look at national polls, people trust Obama's handling of terrorists. But if it comes up in a campaign, as it did in Massachusetts, where polls show, internal Scott Brown polls, I was told, it was 60 to 35% when you were presented Scott Brown's version of how to deal with terrorists and Martha Coakley's more civil liberties-oriented version of how to deal with terrorists. And a pollster for Scott Brown said, look, you know, that when they did this ad on national security, the Scott Brown people, I thought, why are you doing this? People care about health care.
In Massachusetts?
But it just went off the charts. And this is a state that, you know, keep in mind, Republicans are outnumbered 3 to 1 by Democrats, and you have a huge independent vote. And I think the White House is underestimating the problems here, just as they underestimated on health care.
Juan.
Well, I think there's no question about the politics. I mean, that's sort of, you know, the big raps on Democrats historically are tax and spend Democrats, and then weak on national security. So when you say, as Charles did, that this is a brilliant political move, I think it is. But remember, the other side of this is we're not talking politics. We're talking about national security here. Do we really want to reduce this to some kind of political argument that advantage Republicans, disadvantage Democrats? I think that's a really low standard. The fact
However,
is,
the administration has not come up with a timeline of how this Christmas bomber has dealt with
and
this.
Steve Hayes, I think, has done yeoman's work in trying to say exactly what is the deal, because we heard from Robert Gibbs, the White House spokesman, initially that they had 30 hours with Abdul Muttalib, and that they got, and he said this to Chris Wallace on Fox News Sunday, we got all we could.
And it turns out to be 50 minutes.
Well, I don't know what the fact is. I don't know. I think no one has established that this is what, you know, the Dennis Blair, that the intelligence community says, absolutely, here is the facts. I would like that. We don't have that. But I will say this. It's clear they did not understand that this man was in any way tied to an organized terrorist organization when he was first captured. So that we didn't have sufficient intelligence, and I think that mistakes were made on that basis. It wasn't until subsequently understood that he had been trained by al-Qaeda in the Arabian Peninsula.
Do you believe, hold on one second, do you believe that Democrats have concerns enough to side with Lindsey Graham to pull the money for these trials in New York?
Yes, I think there are Democrats. I don't think Lindsey Graham's the kind of guy to pull a bluff here. He's got some Democrats who are concerned about the political damage we've been talking about here tonight. There's political blood in the water. I don't, by the way, buy into this business that that's why Scott Brown beat Martha Coakley. Scott Brown won on health care issues and the fact that people felt that the Obama administration was not listening to their concerns.
All right. Last word.
But the reason the politics are potent here, it's not an invented issue, a created issue, a wedge issue. It's a real issue, and the substance is on the side of those who oppose giving these guys Miranda rights. It is not just an outrage, it makes no sense, and that's why it's a political issue. The brilliance here is making an abstract issue into a concrete one, forcing a vote on the funding.
Well, very quickly, Charles, let me just say what I think here, that it's a close call in the president's mind, because you've got to deal with the fact that these people are not state actors. They're terrorists. And if it's a lone wolf terrorist, exactly how do we treat him? And how does the world view it? And how do we view how we handle it? Remember, President Bush allowed for civilian trials of people who were terrorists. But now it's all against the Democrats, against Obama, and that's why it's a political issue.
It's a safe or you're sorry lesson, I think, for the White House.
Much more on this, we're sure. President Obama is calling for a spending freeze, a position he criticized on the campaign trail. The panel takes that up in 3 minutes.
This program is brought to you by the all-new LendingTree.com.